Tucker Carlson is breaking with Trump on the idea of suppressing speech in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's murder. This is very interesting, but the question as we go through this that I want to hear from you about is Tucker speaking out about this because it's an important principle to him, or is it because he has some other personal grievance at play? So let's talk through it, starting with Donald Trump was asked about his plan to crack down on protesters. They do still have the First Amendment, right? To which Trump said chillingly, well, I'm not so sure. Remember this?
That's a violent radical left group. Okay, go ahead.
I got peppered with a lot of comments for doing that. They still have their First Amendment right, though. They're still out there protesting.
Well,
You've got an amazing...
I'm not so sure if they have their First Amendment rights. We then learned this week, it goes beyond Donald Trump. It's not just Trump. The top law enforcement official in the country, Pam Bondi, the attorney general, she said, oh, no, we're going to be cracking down.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech.
Now, already that the U.S. does not have a hate speech law. She's wrong. That does not exist.
And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Now, Tucker Carlson is not having it. What I want to figure out is why. But here he is saying any attempt to impose hate speech laws in the United States would be bad and it cannot be tolerated. Here's Tucker himself.
That thinking that she just articulated on camera there is exactly what got us to a place where some huge and horrifying percentage of young people think it's okay to shoot people you disagree with, to kill Nazis for saying things they don't like. Why do they believe that? How did we get here? Is it the video games? Is it the SSRIs? Yeah, probably. But what it really is 12 and then 16 years of indoctrination in our schools at the hands of people who tell them that, who say exactly what the attorney general just said. Well, there's free speech, which of course we all acknowledge is important, so important. But then there's this thing called hate speech. Hate speech, of course, is any speech that the people in power hate, but they don't define it that way. They define it as speech that hurts people, speech that is tantamount to violence. And we punish violence, don't we? Of course we do. They've been taught that every year of their lives. And so naturally, most of them believe it. So when Charlie Kirk is shot in the throat with a 30-06 on camera, I doubt very many young Americans want to see something like that or actually applaud the death of a man, a father, a husband. But they've been told for their entire lives in schools exactly what Pam Bondi just told them. Well, there's free speech, but then there's also hate speech, and woe to those who engage in it because it's a crime. That's a lie. And it's a lie that denies the humanity of the people you're telling it about. And so any attempt to impose hate speech laws in this country, and trust me, there are a lot of people who would like them. There are a lot of people who'd like to codify their own beliefs by punishing those under the U.S. code who disagree with their beliefs. Any attempt to do that is a denial of the humanity of American citizens and cannot be allowed under any circumstances.
Now, Tucker goes even further during another moment, and he says, if we see hate speech laws brought to this country, even Tucker says it'll be a time for protest.
You hope that. You hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be.
Wow.
Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human.
Now, the superficial charitable interpretation, which is where we can start, right? The superficial charitable interpretation is, this is just what Tucker believes. Tucker is he's really for speech. When Tucker is saying, hold on a second, that's a little too far, you know that Trump is wandering into dangerous territory. Usually Tucker is all in on Trump, all in on a censorship panic, all in on whatever the right-wing line of the week is. But here he's sounding the alarm. If they go, this will be too far if they do it. But is it simply because Tucker is a principled defender of the Constitution? I don't know. To some degree, it sounds like this is about Tucker's own survival. Tucker's business model depends on being able to say the most inflammatory, the most racially charged. When immigrants come in, things get dirtier. Remember when he said that on Fox News? Depends on saying the most conspiratorial stuff and calling it free speech. If Trump were to gut First Amendment protections, it would be very bad for protesters. That's clear. But it might be bad for Tucker Carlson's career. Tucker needs the chaos. Tucker needs the outrage machine running. And if Trump guts the First Amendment, it might affect Tucker Carlson personally. Now, there's a bigger point here that I think is more important than like calculating Tucker's exact thought process, which is that authoritarians always fracture over which speech to control. Trump wants to crush protest and dissent. Tucker wants the pipeline to stay open for his hate-adjacent content. I don't know that either of them actually cares about free speech in principle. They're protecting their slice of power. Trump sees that the way to protect his power is to try to clamp down on dissent. Tucker sees that the way to protect his slice of power is to keep the pipeline going and not have anyone even consider there might be some sorts of speech that we want to limit. Unfortunately, when it's simply authoritarians picking whose speech to stifle, it's kind of how democratic norms start to die and a pluralistic open society starts to be diminished. And it's never like one sweeping move. It's never, that's it, it's over. You know, even I've said a bunch of times, I'm reading this book, Tunnel 29, about the Cold War and getting out of East Berlin. They didn't even build the Berlin Wall overnight. First, it was like, okay, we've defined where the line is. Then it's we're going to install some barbed wire. Then next thing you know, the bricks and the building materials show up and you've got an actual wall. So the point here is it's really common with strongmen that you end up in a battle where we're just negotiating over which freedoms are negotiable, if that's what the dear leader wants. So I want to hear from you. Is this just a principled Tucker Carlson defending all speech, or is there something in it for him personally?